J. Esteban.
And I'm Queen Sebastian for Newswatch, second edition. Good evening. The remains of former President Corazon Aquino has been laid to rest at the Manila Memorial Park beside the tomb of her husband, Ninoy Aquino. Her funeral procession ran for 8 hours as thousands of people took to the streets to witness it. More on this from Ina Andalong.
Former President Corazon Aquino was laid to rest beside her late husband, former Senator Ninoy Aquino, at 8:21 this evening. Family, friends, and supporters of Mrs. Aquino gathered at the Manila Memorial Park to witness her burial. Mrs. Aquino's funeral procession was welcomed at the cemetery with the playing of the national anthem and a gun salute. Placed on top of a caisson, the president's casket was escorted by marching honor guards on the way to the Aquino family mausoleum. Her family was right with her. It was a quick burial. Bishop Soc Villegas immediately gave Mrs. Aquino the final blessing, after which family members were allowed to kiss their matriarch for the last time. Family members, most of whom were in tears, then blessed Mrs. Aquino's casket with holy water. Her brown casket was then placed inside a tomb beside her husband's. Family members also put yellow flowers inside her tomb. Supporters who made their way to Mrs. Aquino's grave became emotional as well as they watched the former president being laid to rest. They said witnessing the icon of democracy's interment was more than enough to make up for the long wait.
Sobrang lungkot at masaya rin na nakita na yung paglibing sa kanya dito.
Naging sulit ba yung kumbaga paghihintay niyo yung buong araw para
Sulit talaga. Na hanggang nawala yung mga tsinelas namin, nawala.
Malungkot po, siyempre, kasi wala na yung pag-asa natin na nakatulong sa atin noon na makalaya sa Marcos. Kaya malungkot.
For Newswatch, I'm Ina Andalong.
More than 100,000 people witnessed the funeral procession of former President Corazon Aquino. Many say it was reminiscent of the funeral procession of Senator Benigno Aquino Jr. in 1983. This report from Mayan Los Baños.
At around 11 this morning, the flat truck bed carrying former President Cory Aquino's casket started to move out of the Manila Cathedral. People outside the church also geared up to escort the former president's cortege. Some brought their own cars and joined the procession. This group of men who went ahead of the cortege gave yellow ribbons to the people.
Bukal sa kalooban na para yung mga kasama natin, mga kababayan ay makaganda dito sa aming pakikipagsimpatya.
Among the sympathizers who lined up the streets were students, teachers, children, and ordinary citizens.
Rain or shine, nothing could stop the people here in Ross Boulevard from waiting for the funeral procession of former President Cory Aquino, all of them wanting to pay their last respects to the icon of democracy.
The funeral procession was reminiscent of the 1986 People Power Revolution. As people crowded the roads where the cortege passed, some of them even got emotional.
Kanina pa kaming umaga rito, alas 6 ng umaga. Umulan, umaraw, bumagyo, nandito kami. Hindi kami aalis hanggat hindi namin nakikita.
The crowd waved yellow ribbons and flashed the Laban sign as the funeral cortege passed by. Police estimate the people who lined up along Ross Boulevard, Quirino Avenue, and Osmeña Highway up to Manila Memorial Park to almost 150,000. Along Quirino Avenue, there were groups of people distributing food. 75-year-old Corazon de Villa was among those who waited for the funeral procession. She claims to be a loyal supporter of the former president.
Maganda ang ugali niya, maka-Diyos, makatao, para ako nawala ng sister.
There were also those who brought with them EDSA Revolution memorabilia.
Spontaneous, hindi walang nag-organisa, gusto lahat sumama.
For Newswatch, I'm Mayan Los Baños.
Emotions ran high at the Requiem Mass for former President Corazon Aquino at the Manila Cathedral. Mrs. Aquino's spiritual advisor, Father Catalino Arevalo, recalled the suffering she overcame through her deep faith. Vivian Gulia filed this report.
The icon of democracy has once more reunited the people in her funeral mass. Despite varying beliefs and affiliations, political and showbiz personalities came to the Manila Cathedral today to bid former President Corazon Aquino goodbye. Among the personalities who attended the Requiem Mass were East Timor President Jose Ramos Horta, former Presidents Joseph Estrada and Fidel Ramos, Vice President Noli De Castro, Senator Loren Legarda, and Executive Secretary Eduardo Ermita. The Mass was officiated by Balanga Bishop Soc Villegas, a close friend of the Aquino family. In his final commendation, Villegas thanked the former president for being a light in one of the country's darkest times.
Thank you for teaching us to stand up for freedom and to preserve democracy, no matter what the cost may be. Thank you for changing the meaning of yellow for us, the color of your love for your country and her people.
Mrs. Aquino's grandson read the first and second readings, the responsorial psalm, and the prayers of the faithful. The former president's spiritual guide, Father Catalino Arevalo, gave the homily as requested by Mrs. Aquino. He recalled the sufferings of the former president, sufferings which he says only saints can understand. Father Arevalo also relayed how Mrs. Aquino relied on his faith to be able to carry her own cross.
7 crosses are painted for the 7 months and 7 weeks of Ninoy's imprisonment, for the 7 attempted coups during her presidency, and all around, many multicolored roses. At the back of the painting, in her own hand, she wrote a haiku. Crosses and roses make my life more meaningful. I cannot complain.
The Mass was capped by Lea Salonga's rendition of Bayan Ko. As she sang, people raised their arms with a laban sign. They cheered for Cory while her casket was being lifted from its place near the altar.